Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and thanks a lot for coming by the channel, spending some time with me. Always very thankful for that. And guys, today I want to address sort of like what I've seen over the past 2 or 3 months. There's been a lot of other YouTubers that have got on, and they're basically addressing some of the issues I talk about as far as the decline in our fisheries out there, impact forward-facing sonars having on it, impact that too many bass tournaments are having at it. And they always throw up some what they call data and past tournament results to basically try to undermine or justify their point of view and try to make it seem like I don't know what I'm talking about. So we're going to address that and really bring some reality to the situation here in today's video. Also, guys, just a big thank you out there. Just wanted to do just every single day. I want to thank you guys for supporting the channel, subscribing to the channel, using all my links I put in the description there. If you guys are, supportive of the channel, that's the best thing you can do is just use all those links in the description. So it's really appreciated by me and my family. So thanks a lot if you're one of the people that's doing that. Okay, guys, I wanted to do this. There's a couple different YouTubers out there the last couple weeks that have sort of tried to they try to sort of like prove me wrong as far as my viewpoint from Grand Lake, as far as the decline in the fishery there, and they go through past tournament results as sort of a example of what they're trying to talk about, how the fishing is just as good as it's ever been. I sort of want to blow a hole in that whole approach there a little bit on this data that people are trying to use to justify and deny the reality that our fisheries are in decline and that there's a lot of different impacts on that. First of all, let's briefly touch upon the whole sustainability issue, the forward-facing sonar, quality of fishing through studies that you see a lot of the conservation departments. As you know, we've talked about this in the past before. You cannot say that there's this ironclad proof of a study when the way the conservation departments and the fisheries managers are basically interviewing people at the ramp, see how many fish they've caught, and some type of gill netting or shocking studies with that. That is not a good way to accurately determine the quality of the fishing in any particular body of water. You simply can't cover everything with that. You can't believe people when they tell you one thing or the other about how many fish they caught. Those are not reliable studies. But what I really want to talk about is people that every time I talk about the decline of a fishery, they go back through past tournament data and they sort of equate it to, how the fishing is as good or better than it's ever been before. And there's an illusion to this I want to address a little bit. First of all, I do understand that some years are going to be better. Let's say, for example, if you've got a tournament in March, based upon the weather conditions and the lake conditions, there are going to be some, extenuating circumstances that make those weights fluctuate. But the first thing I want to say is you can't look at tournament results as any type of a gauge or a pulse on the quality of the fishery, because when you're talking about tournament anglers, you're talking about the cream of the crop, the best of the best, the upper 1% in bass anglers across the country. Most people that fish for bass do not fish tournaments. Tournament anglers are simply experts at what they do for the most part. Even on the BFL or club level, bass anglers are good. It's like they are far and above in skill level from the average angler out there. So from that sense out there, you can't look at tournament results and try to point that to the quality of the fishery out there, because it's sort of giving you a false reading. The ideal scenario would be with that is if you could talk to and believe and have studies done on the average bass guy that doesn't fish tournaments, that maybe goes out and fishes, half a dozen, 10 times a year, just the average bass angler that goes to the lake maybe once or twice a month out there, that those are the anglers out there that really determine the quality of a fishery out there as far as how good it is. Now, there's a couple different things with this, why you have, just from the tournament realm, the data that people present on a tournament, as far as on tournaments, the data is inconclusive and you can't really trust it. First of all, when you talk about a tournament result, like in 2024 or 2013 or 2020 or whatever like that, you can't look at the tournament results and the weights that were caught during that time frame versus the time frame of like 20, 25, 30 years ago. simply because of not only the advancements in the equipment out there, but our knowledge of fishing is completely different out there. So the thing about that is when you try to say, okay, if you look back at a tournament at Grand Lake from the year 1995, look back in 1995 and see what the anglers were dealing with. They were using jigs, they were throwing spinner baits. This was pre all the, tricked out swim baits and Alabama rigs and all the Japanese influence, all the high tech lures out there. It was before, GPS. It was before any type of electronic technology above flashers out there. And that's the weights they caught. If you took, let's say, for example, if you took a tournament at Grand Lake in Oklahoma in 1990, where, the guy had a flasher, he had no GPS, the information that he had on bass was just accumulated from, decades and decades of fishing. There was no internet to get immediate access to it. His lure selection was something like a shad wrap, a half-ounce spinnerbait, a black and blue jig, something like that. If you would take that same, and say he went out and caught 16, 18 pounds of fish in a tournament, if you would take that same tournament angler and the field of anglers that also had the similar type of equipment, and you put them on the 2024 water, that's the only way that you can go back in time and gauge the quality of the fishery. Because what happens is technology and lure technology, electronic technology, advancements in every aspect of our boats, the influx of information available on social media, YouTube, all that type of stuff that has educated and closed the skill levels to where it's imperceptible between most anglers out there. You can't look at the weights that are generated from 2024 in terms of what was generated in 1990 based upon those technological advancements. The only way that you can get a good gauge on this is the only way that you could do it. Let's say that there was a big tournament down at Grand Lake in 1990, and you go through the list of everything, the weights that were caught. Then the tournament in 2024, you give that same field of anglers the exact same lures and techniques and knowledge of fishing that they had then. This was before people knew how to fish offshore or anything like that. If you took that same talent pool and equipment pool, you put it in a 2024 tournament, you would see a radical decline in the weights that you have. You can't go, there's no way that you're going to go down to Grand Lake right now and throw a black and blue jig, an old Model A bomber, and a half-ounce spinnerbait and catch the type of weights that you saw caught the last couple of years down at Grand Lake. It's not going to happen. So from that standpoint, there is an illusion out there that fishing continues to be better when it is all propped up by the technology out there. So that's one of the things that you have to consider is when you're looking at those past tournament results out there, at just the caliber and quality of fishing that we have in our lakes out there. Here's another way that you can only determine the quality of a fishery versus now versus then. You have to look at the people that have spent their lives fishing that body of water. So say, for example, you take myself, you take a dozen of my buddies that are the same age that I am, and we've been fishing Table Rock Lake or Lake of the Ozarks or whatever for the past 40 years. You take those people and you set them down and you say, okay, how have you seen this fishery evolve as far as the fishing getting tougher or the decline in the fisheries? And guys, anybody out there that has an extensive amount of experience on a body of water, I don't care if it's in Missouri here or if it's in Florida or whatever, every single person will tell you the same thing, that the fishing it sucks now compared to what it was then in terms of catching fish and quality fish. And that is the only way that you can really get a true gauge on how good a fishery is. The only way you can get a good gauge out there is by taking the average bass angler out there that's not a pro, that's not a tournament angler, that has the lure selections, the only thing that they can buy at a retail store, and they don't have 6 graphs, they don't have $50,000 worth of electronics on their boat, and put them out there and see how many fish they catch per hour over the course of an entire year. Then you get sort of a gauge with that. But one of the things about it, I just don't have a lot of patience for these people that it's almost like they're trying to justify or protect whatever's happening to make a fishery in decline. And I know for sure, guys. And I've talked about this before, but I'll just go back to Table Rock Lake, for example. And I don't have any interest. I don't have any type of vested interest in this at all. It's like when I say this, I'm not trying. There's nothing I'm trying to do to promote or endorse when I say this. I have fished Table Rock Lake since the early 70s, and I've spent thousands of days on that lake. And I've, for the last 40 years, I mean, thousands of days on the lake out there. And I'm a professional angler, so I'm in that group that we're talking about as far as, above the weekend angler out there. I can tell you with 100% honesty, without any doubt out there, Table Rock Lake is a shadow of what it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago out there. You don't, and it doesn't, just because the weights are similar, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean the quality of fishing is better now than it was back then. It was so much more easier to catch fish back then, and quality fish on a consistent day-to-day level, than it is right now. And let me give you a prime example here. Is like, I do a lot of winter jerkbait fishing at Table Rock Lake and at the lakes around here. On an average that, let's say 10 years ago even, we'll just go back only 10 years ago, on an average day, Table Rock Lake, anytime between December and March, on an average winter jerkbait day out there, I would average anywhere between, say, 12 to 18 pounds of fish every single day. I don't care if it was raining, snowing, cloudy, whatever out there. And most of the bags were in that 14-pound range. The last 2 or 3 years, with the advent of forward-facing sonar and this increase in tournaments and the increase in pressure on the lake, when I go fishing at Table Rock Lake, it is difficult just to catch a limit of keepers. It's difficult to catch 5 fish that weigh 10 or 11 pounds. And this was going to the same techniques, the same areas, even with lure advancements, even with knowing more about the fish, going to these places that have produced for decades. And the fish just aren't there. They are not there. I can tell you 100%. It's like, it's not that I don't know what I'm doing. It's not like the fish are not in those same places. It's not like the lures I use have become obsolete because I got all the latest lures. The bass are simply not there like they were. It's been a precipitous decline in the quality of the fishing out there. I can tell you for sure, with no other agenda other than trying to bring some awareness, some light to this. Now, the point is what I don't quite understand, the people that try to defend what I'm trying to rail against. I don't understand what they're trying to accomplish. When I bring attention to the light about what's happened at Grand Lake, these guys that do these videos, they were in diapers when I was fishing tournaments at Grand Lake and winning tournaments at Grand Lake. They weren't even born when I was catching 25-pound bags at Grand Lake. I know what has happened at Grand Lake. I've spent thousands of days on that lake as well. So you can't pull up a bunch of tournament data and say, see, Randy, they're the same. There's no difference. There's just, little bit of fluctuation here and there, but our fish they're taking just as big of bags to catch the fish. That is because it's an illusion. That's not real, guys. You can't go out and say, okay, it took 23 pounds to win last week at Table Rock Lake, and it took 19 pounds to win at Table Rock Lake, a tournament the same time of year 25 years ago, because the tournament that just got won with 22 or 23 pounds at Table Rock Lake was from some dude that's got $50,000 worth of electronics on his boat. He live scoped the fish out in their deep water sanctuaries with these high-tech lures out there. It's not like it was when the guy caught 18 or 20 pounds of fish in 1990 with the Bomber Model A or something like that. So my message to those people out there is stop trying to defend the declining of our fisheries out there. Everybody should want our fisheries to get better and better and better. And until we reduce the amount of tournaments that are out there or spread them apart, I don't necessarily mean not having tournaments, but at least spread them apart where they're not on top of each other, or they're not on the lakes during the spawn or during the post-spawn when the fish are really susceptible, and put a rein on this electronic technology. Until that happens out there, this is going to continue. It's just going to get tougher and tougher and tougher to catch fish than it's ever been. So point of the video, guys, is don't let the data steer you in the wrong direction, because what you're seeing is not reflective of what is exactly happening on the lake. If you want to get a good judge, all you guys, let me throw you guys an example out here. All you guys that think Grand Lake is so great, and it's been great as it's ever been, and you guys that think Table Rock's great as it's ever been, all you guys that think Grand Lake is as good as now, all you biologists that try to defend the fishing so good, you go out there right now, you put you a crawdad deep weir on, you put you a half-ounce white and chartreuse spinnerbait on, you put you a black and blue jig on, and you go down to Grand Lake right now, and we'll see how many fish you catch. We'll see how many fish you catch now versus when I could go back 30 years ago and catch a 20-pound bag almost any day I wanted to on that. That is the reality of the situation. Don't go out there and tout the fact and brag about the fact that it took 23 pounds to win this tournament and leave out the fact that you've got some dude live scoping with $50,000 worth of electronics and every piece of technology available to mankind, while 40% of the field zeroed at the same time that didn't have that. So anyway, I just sort of lost patience for a little bit out there. I lose patience for people that try to undermine the attempts of people like myself that are trying to create a long-term sustainability for our fishery without the technology creating this illusion that it's better than what it is. So like I said, it's just sort of an ongoing battle with that. I don't really understand it. Why the only people that really understand this are the people that have been around as long as I have. It's like, unless you have literally spent decades and you've witnessed this transition year after year after year, your mind can't really wrap around that particular concept. So anyway, point of the video, guys, is like, if you're one of those dudes out there that think Grand Lake or your lake in Texas is whatever is better than it's ever been, then you go back. I don't care if you're on Sam Rayburn or whatever, you go back, 30 years ago and go out fishing on the lake with the baits that were available then, the technology that was available then, and just see how many fish you catch. And then you'll get a reality check on the situation. So anyway, I hope you guys are well. We'll talk later.